Uh-oh. Hold on, I gotta take care of this. The rebellion is still alive. Well, I am Chris Swearingin, and this is Computer Magazine. Let's get the digital mashup started for today, Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. Good job, hon. Yeah, I'll see you in the break room. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. The Mobile World Congress is finishing up today, so we've got a few things to go over there. That internet outage we had the other day, well, we knew it was Amazon. Now we know a little more, that it was a system administrator and a simple command line mistake made during maintenance. We'll talk about that. A hidden backdoor was found in Chinese Internet of Things devices, and that's no surprise, but we'll go over that. We'll talk about a few things about the RSA conference that finished up last month, mid-February, in San Francisco. We're going to go over a few things about the dark web. We've got the video of the day, the question of the day, and the picture of the day. So stay tuned. Well, this first story comes to us from Ars Technica. Amazon S3 problem caused by command line mistake during maintenance. Amazon Web Services has explained the hours-long service disruption that caused many websites and internet-connected services to go offline earlier this week. The Amazon Simple Storage Service S3 team was debugging a problem in the S3 billing system on Tuesday morning when one team member executed a command which was intended to remove a small number of servers from one of the S3 subsystems that is used by the S3 billing process. Amazon wrote in a postmortem describing the incident. That's when things went wrong. Unfortunately, one of the inputs to the command was entered incorrectly and a larger set of servers was removed than intended. The servers that were inadvertently removed supported two other S3 subsystems. They're kind of all stacked together. An index subsystem that manages the metadata and location information for all S3 objects in the Virginia data center region was one of the two affected, Amazon wrote. The subsystem is necessary to serve all get, list, put, and delete requests. The second subsystem, the placement subsystem, manages allocation of new storage and requires the index subsystem to be functioning properly to correctly operate. The placement subsystem is used during put requests to allocate storage for new objects. Yeah, when you're using the Amazon services, you pick your region for where your services are coming from. You get to do that. Let's read the rest of the article. So, this is a case where a system administrator has to be very, very careful when you're dealing with live systems. This is why you have a replicated test system, but Amazon is just so huge. It's going to be difficult. Amazon had to do a full restart of the affected systems after the unexpected removal of capacity. While these subsystems were being restarted, S3 was unable to service requests, Amazon wrote. Other AWS services in the U.S. East 1 region that rely on S3 for storage, including the S3 console, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, new instances launches, Amazon Elastic Book Storage, EBS, volumes when data was needed from an S3 snapshot, and AWS Lambda were also impacted while the S3 APIs were unavailable. I'm thinking somebody probably lost their job for that. Ooh. Yeah, I remember the days of being a system administrator of large networks. Large corporate networks like that. Preventing a reoccurrence. Although S3 subsystems are designed to keep working with little or no customer impact, even when significant capacity fails or is removed, Amazon said it had not completely restarted the index subsystem or the placement subsystem in our larger regions for many years. S3 has experienced massive growth over the last several years, and the process of restarting these services and running the necessary safety checks to validate the integrity of the metadata took longer than expected. Yeah, it's got to be a huge database of it. Huge. Of course, everything with Amazon is you're dealing with massive data stores. Amazon says it has a way to prevent this problem from reoccurring. Amazon has to be able to remove capacity when necessary, but the tool used allowed too much capacity to be removed too quickly, the company said. We have modified this tool to remove capacity more slowly and added safeguards to prevent capacity from being removed when it will take any subsystem below its minimum required capacity level. Amazon is also auditing other operational tools to ensure that they have similar safety checks and will make changes to improve the recovery time of key S3 subsystems. Amazon's service update system went down too. Amazon itself relies on S3 and was thus temporarily unable to provide public service updates on the AWS Service Health dashboard. Going forward, the dashboard administration console will utilize multiple data center regions in order to stay online when one region is disrupted. That means if a data center in Virginia fails, the system could still operate from data centers elsewhere in the U.S. or world. Well, I figured they would have already had all their services distributed amongst all their data services. Apparently not. But that's just the health dashboard, so maybe they thought they'd get away with just the one location. Apparent victims of the outage included the AV Club, Trello, Quora, IFTTT, Open Whisper systems, and websites created with Wix. Some people also reported problems with internet-connected devices such as an oven, remote light controllers, including one powered by IFTTT, and a front gate. Yeah, we're IoT. We talked about this yesterday, and we're going to be talking about it again today with everything being connected. We want to apologize for the impact this event caused for our customers, Amazon concluded. While we are proud of our long track record of availability with Amazon S3, we know how critical this service is to our customers, their applications and end users, and their businesses. We will do everything we can to learn from this event and use it to improve our availability even further. Well, I'll have the link to this article in the show notes, as always. You know, this is not a chronic problem with Amazon. They're one of the most reliable cloud services out there. They have a great distributed infrastructure for storage, for virtual machines. I've got several virtual machines with them, Linux and Windows Server and so forth. And then I've got it with other providers as well, other data centers. But they don't have problems very often. And considering just the massive system administration team they have to have, the massive, all the data centers that they're coordinating, all the virtualization, for this to have happened, obviously because there was some utility with too wide of permissions that they really didn't think through. And of course, sometimes you cannot think through everything when you're administering extremely large data centers like these. I'm not directly a system administrator nowadays. I'm in management, but I was a network engineer and system administrator at that level, and I still deal with the systems. Of course, I have to manage all that, but yeah, I mean, these guys don't have an easy job, but it's well paid. It's a good field, and many of you are, I'm sure, are in it. So, yeah, no, I don't really fault Amazon, frankly. If this was a chronic problem, it would be different. Okay, on to our next story. So, the next story comes from the Register. We found a hidden backdoor in Chinese Internet of Things devices. Researchers. VoIP kit makers probed. IoT devices from Chinese vendor contain a hidden backdoor that the vendor is refusing to fix, according to security researchers. The vulnerability was discovered in almost all devices produced by VoIP specialist DBL Tech and appears to have been purposely built in as a debugging aid, according to researchers at TrustWave. The InfoSec Biz says that it followed a responsible disclosure process, but claims the manufacturer responded only with modifications to its firmware that leave access open. TrustWave claims the vendor then cut off contact with them. The security firm says it has since been able to write exploits that open both the old and new backdoors. The vulnerable firmware is present in almost all DBL Tech GSM to VoIP devices, a range of equipment mostly used by small to medium-sized businesses, it claims. TrustWave researchers claim they had found hundreds of at-risk devices on the internet, according to researchers. TrustWave recently reported remotely exploitable issue in the Telnet administrative interface of numerous DBL Tech branded devices. The issue permits a remote attacker to gain a shell with root privileges on the affected devices due to vendor backdoor in the authentication procedure. An undocumented user, namely DBL admin or DBL ADM, is present, which provides root level shell access on the device. Instead of a traditional password, the account is protected by proprietary challenge response authentication scheme. Basically, when you try to telnet into the device's DBL ADM, the gadget tries to connect to UDP port 11,000 on 192.168.2.1 on its local network. If it receives a valid response, it grants access. This is perfect for malware or some other miscreant lurking on a corporate or home network. LReg asked DBL Tech to respond to TrustWave's accusations on Wednesday, but we've yet to hear back from the manufacturer. We'll update this story as and when we hear more. Yeah, well, look, this device is coming from China. This has been a problem for years with backdoors being built. And of course, this is a problem that could be with any company. I mean, as we know, famously, the NSA was intercepting Cisco routers and replacing Cisco's iOS, which is their routing operating system, with an NSA hacked version that allowed them to hack foreign governments or foreign businesses. Anyway, but China has a real strong motive to do this, to place firmware that is remotely accessible. And unfortunately, some of these older devices, like your old IP cams that are the cheaper makes, come from China, and that might be 5-10 years old. You don't know. You don't know if there's a backdoor in there, unless you're an IT professional, and you can either reverse engineer the firmware, or you could, what you really have to do is make sure you're monitoring your router and inbound and outbound traffic and do a sniff of the network traffic. But your average user is not going to be able to do that. So you really don't know. So and as IoT expands and all these cheap devices come from China, this problem is going to grow and grow. Now, hopefully, companies like this are given a really bad name for doing this kind of thing, for leaving any kind of insecure port or authentication process in their device. They're not stupid, well, you can't say all of them are not stupid, but generally, I think there's there's an illegitimate reason behind why they're doing this, why they're leaving these. Oops, we messed up. Yeah. So the best policy is to never leave any device connected to your network and the internet unless you have to. So to be safe, and also even people who know enough. Like IT professionals don't have the time to. You got work, you got everything else, which you're going to monitor every device on your network as well, and at home, let alone your company where you might have thousands of devices. In fact, there was a story recently about a company that they had a VLAN for all their Coke machines and so forth that are being put on the internet so that vendors can check their statuses, whether they need to be refilled. And there was a major hack attack against these devices, and it was bringing down their DNS servers because they were... Anyway, they corrected the problem by correctly segmenting off any IoT devices on it was a college campus, that's what it was. And they segmented off the DNS servers for that VLAN as well. So there's ways to manage it, but better safe than sorry. China has real motives to hack us competitively and government-wise, and there's just so many pathways in. This is they got into the DNC, Russia did. So of course, then we're not even taking Russia into account here. But okay, so let's get on to our next story. So, I had mentioned going over the dark web. It comes up frequently nowadays. The Shodan search engine, and even these hacked Chinese devices where the firmware have flaws that allow people to get into them. They'll show up on the Shodan search engine. I'm assuming that flaw we just discussed probably has been added to the catalog. Plus, there's Linux distributions, and we'll go over some of those in future digital mashups or other series that we do of the Linux builds that are built just for hacking. That every time there's some new flaw, just like the one we just discussed, they'll add it to the catalog, so you can, your what used to be called, you don't hear the term very often anymore, script kiddies, but anyway, it essentially is that, it'll be added to the catalog of utilities you can run, pretty much automated, to scan and look for any of these thousands of vulnerabilities, do an automated scan until you pick up one, and usually all you need is one to get into somebody's network. And hopefully they have multiple layers of security with, if it's a Windows network or generally a Windows-based network, then hopefully domain security, Active Directory, and permissions lockdown, and strong password enforcement, and so forth. But file encryption, everything. But so hopefully you have multiple layers. But even then, somebody can usually then find another device within the network somewhere that they can penetrate and stake out a spot to launch from. So anyway, so the dark web relates, obviously, and I've mentioned it several times. So Extreme Tech did an article yesterday on the dark web, a little article, and it leads directly into our video of the day. So Let's check it out. Extreme Tech explains all about the dark web and how to use it. If you've paid attention to online marketplaces for illegal goods, like the now defunct Silk Road or the FBI's investigations into criminals in cyberspace, chances are you've heard the term dark web. Curious about what it means? You've come to the right place. The dark web is sometimes called Onion Land because of its content accessible only using services like Tor. The rest of the internet is simply referred to as the clear web, since it isn't generally encrypted. Yeah, Tor, I mentioned it yesterday, the Onion router, which you can use. You can get integrated with a browser and makes it easy with a customized Firefox. Just do a search for the Tor browser. I was talking about that in references to BitTorrent, but anyway, Tor is really something separate that you can run. And there's Tor services that are hidden services that run websites, everything that run on the Tor network that are hidden. That's kind of the purpose. Most of them not for legitimate purposes, but on the other hand, there's a lot of secure. They're taking advantage of this as a secure service. In fact, one of the authors of Tor created a calendar that has no authentication at all because nobody's going to be able to find his calendar service that he shares with his family. We'll talk about that some other time. Anyway, let's get back to the article. How does the dark web work? The dark web works just about the same as the regular internet. It uses the same TCP/IP framework to transmit HTTP and FTP traffic within and between networks over the same phone, cable, or FiOS lines that carry regular internet traffic. Content on the dark web consists of HTML web pages and their assets, just like it does on the rest of the web. In fact, under the hood, the dark web is the same as the regular web, with two important exceptions that also distinguish the dark web from the deep web. First, the dark web isn't indexed by search engines. Second, content on the dark web can't be accessed with a regular web browsing software alone. Additional software is required to make the networks talk to one another. This is because content on the dark web is hosted on overlay networks which are physically connected to the internet but aren't accessible to web crawlers. The relative inaccessibility is because the dark web uses a complete but fundamentally different network addressing system that the web addresses most of us know and different than most of us know and use. Browsers like Chrome and Firefox are programmed to access website files using the DNS index, which turns a file's unique address on its unique server into a string of text that you can type into your address bar. Sites indexed by the DNS registry are accessed via top-level domains like .com, .org, among others. After I can open up the suffixing system to other strings of text, we started to see web addresses that look like home.cern and bit.ly, but you can still type those into your address bar and get to a website because they're in the official DNS registry. Dark websites don't participate in the DNS system, and web crawlers don't have the software to get into the dark web, so the dark web and clear web don't really cross-pollinate. We've gone over DNS before, and if you likely know if you're an IT professional, but DNS is basically converting your IP address, which is like your network, your home or company's network phone number on the internet, into a name like www.computermagazine.com. It's a index, like a phone book, essentially, digitally, that converts one into the other. Content obscured in this way still can still be accessed, but you need the right software. It's a bit like a Wi-Fi network that doesn't broadcast its SSID. You can only get access if you already know exactly how to find it. Some content accessible only through Tor is hosted at a .onion pseudo top-level domain, which means that in the right software you might type in foobar.onion and get the foobar dark website. Such software, including the Tor browser bundle, is capable of bridging the differences in network behavior between the dark web and the clear web. But that only works when you're using a compatible browser and have the right encryption. Tor, Freenet, I2P are the most commonly cited examples of software capable of accessing the dark web. Typing .onion address into your Chrome address bar won't get you anywhere. Furthermore, many, if not most, .onion sites are generated 16-character non-mnemonic alphanumeric strings rather than being comprised of words like most clear web URLs. There also exists a difference in the path between traffic takes on the ClearNet versus the dark web. Tor is valuable because it sends your own web traffic through multiple different network nodes, masking its origin and destination. There's significant overlap between VPNs and the dark web. Both services use encryption and multiple network nodes to anonymize traffic. But VPNs deal with clear web sites that participate in the DNS system, while the dark web browsers deal with domains not recognized by ICANN. What is the dark web used for? The structure of the dark web makes it anonymizing, which means that first and foremost, it's used for anonymous communications and web browsing. This accounts for the vast majority of network traffic through Tor. Why seek out anonymity? To read and write about things that might get you in trouble, like political dissent or whistleblowing. The same technology that enables Tor is capable of tunneling out from the Great Firewall of China, and the U.S. government contributes to the development of such software. And they also hack such software. But yeah, that's a great point. I should have brought that up yesterday. Tor is an invaluable service for using in countries like China that monitor or attempt to monitor all their traffic for people who might say something unpopular or even get them executed. Anonymity also brings out those who wish to do illegal things. A 2014 study found that of the different kinds of sites on the darknet, there are more markets devoted to drugs and guns than any other kind of dark site, including forums, Bitcoin laundering, hacking, fraud, whistleblowing, and even regular old porn. To paraphrase Jim Jeffries, if you want to murder someone, you can't just walk up to Pier 31 and shout, "Guns! Who wants to sell me some guns?" But with a website like an evil eBay that lists weapons and other contraband for sale, all of a sudden you don't have to know someone with a, quote, black market connections. You just have to be able to install some software. And here is a diagram that shows how it works. Tor hidden services are the other thing the dark web does, and they're what gives the dark web its shady reputation. Hidden services refers to dark sites where both the host and visitor are anonymous to one another. That technology enables dark websites that host illegal content to persist. Hidden services account for only 1.5% of the Tor network volume, but the overwhelming majority of the resources requested over Tor hidden services, fully 80% of the traffic, were requests from child abuse sites. Outgoing traffic from the dark web flowed mainly between botnets and their hidden control servers. More detail on Tor's traffic patterns and how much of its total bandwidth is used for illegal activities is available in a blog post by the Tor project. Yeah, it's a lot of this the hijacking and the botnets are involved. There's a lot of shady reasons the Tor network is, but it's invaluable for the cases in which it can be legitimately used, such as foreign countries. Not really in the United States. There's not a lot of reason right now. Legitimately, I mean. The dark web is notoriously dodgy territory for both buyers and sellers. Law enforcement has been chipping away at the nominal anonymity afforded by software like Tor, and anything of interest on the dark web is as likely to be a scam as it is to be a honeypot. Between social engineering and software vulnerabilities, It is a realm best accessed while wielding some trustworthy anti-malware. For a long time, the Silk Road was the biggest game on in darknet commerce. It allowed users to celebrate many illegal things and inspired a number of similarly designed copycat markets. Transactions there were conducted in bitcoins and other virtual currency, and then goods were shipped through the mail. But a high-profile bust and ensuing court case put several Silk Road admins in jail. The media spotlight has impinged on the Silk Road's relative obscurity, reducing its value as a black marketplace. While Uncle Sam contributes to the development of Tor and similar anonymity resources, the government is also known to take more of a proprietary approach, considering even the dark web to be within American jurisdiction when site hosting is in question. The FBI paid Carnegie Mellon to crack Tor in pursuit of a criminal case. This happened many months back. They even waded into the muck and ran a huge sting operation on Playpen, a dark net child porn site, by taking over control of the site and running it for weeks as a poison well to catch its users. Yeah, well, there's some scummy things going on, like everything. But anyway, the darknet is an excellent example of how difficult it is to prevent criminals from using anonymizing services designed to protect honest dissenters. Tor's anonymizing functions are critically important to people who rely on it to discuss sensitive topics without fear of reprisal. To debate over how much light should be shown into the dark web is an ongoing topic of discussion. How much illegal activity should be allowed to maintain Tor's positive benefits? And is there a way to unmask child molesters and other illicit activity without compromising the security that makes the dark web work? And this will lead into our video of the day. Well, but so, I've got an opinion on everything, right? Of course, that is my job. That's why I'm here. If you can read the articles yourself, of course. That's what computermagazine.com is for. But I do this show to make it easy on you. So if you're driving to work or you want to just sit back and listen and watch, who wouldn't want to watch this face, right? You might want to turn the video off, but you can still listen. And it makes it easier because you don't have to read it yourself, right? But also, I do it to give my opinion. Why not, right? Hopefully you want to hear my opinion. Hopefully you want to hear somebody else discuss their thoughts on it. Anyway, so I remember back, as you may well, depending on your age, when the internet started. Publicly accessible anyway, 92, 93 in there. Started with college campuses, as far as college campuses connecting, and then services like CompuServe started having pathways to email out through the internet, and then eventually ISPs, dial-up ISPs became the thing, and then eventually cable companies got into it. And the moment my cable company offered it, I was back when I was living in Texas, 94, 95. Then the moment they offered broadband over cable, I subscribed. And back then I was hosting my website on my own cable because it was infinitely faster than most people's internet connection was at 56K dial-up, if they were lucky. And so you could do that. You can still do it today, but it's difficult. It'd be very slow, especially if you have a lot of multimedia. But anyway, okay, but my point is if you recall back in those days, illicit activities were one of the things that police were wanting to crack down on the internet, because the moment the internet became wide and publicly available, of course, your criminals and everybody else started using it, setting up websites and selling drugs and all this, and child porn. Anything, any disgusting thing you can think of, and legitimate things. Unfortunately, the point is they all get mixed together. A lot of people had a very shady view of the internet back then, who weren't in the technology world. They're like, oh, that's where people, because they would hear these stories of all these criminals using it for that. So now it's receded some. The internet is totally mainstream. But the dark web has become this place for the seedy uses. But like everything, it's also got legitimate uses mixed in. And so then the government tries to infiltrate that, and then there becomes another layer. In fact, they've created yet another layer of the onion network to try to make it even more secure because of the government infiltrating this. Now your true criminals, your people in child porn and all, will go to that. And this layer of the Tor network is used for legitimate purposes. I use it sometimes. It's used to back up multiple systems across the internet, both using Tor and BitTorrent. Because you have encryption, you have obfuscation, you have a VPN, so you have all those services that are valuable for other reasons. But either way, also in other countries, obviously, as we've discussed, it's not necessarily a scummy thing to use, but of course, like the original internet, a lot of people go there for that reason. So let's take a look at the video of the day, which they have on their in this article embedded, but it's actually a TED Talk, so we're going to go listen to it. It's about 13 minutes long, I believe. And just a minute, let me get it set up here.
If you want to buy high quality, low price cocaine, there really is only one place to go. And that is the darknet anonymous markets. Now, you can't get to these sites with a normal browser, Chrome or Firefox, because they're on this hidden part of the internet, known as Tor hidden services, where URLs are a string of meaningless numbers and letters that end in .onion, and which you access with a special browser called the Tor browser. Now, the Tor browser was originally a US naval intelligence project. It then became open source, and it allows anybody to browse the net without giving away their location. And it does this by encrypting your IP address and then routing it via several other computers around the world that use the same software. You can use it on the normal internet, but it's also your key to the dark net. And because of this fiendishly clever encryption system, the 20 or 30, we don't know exactly, 1,000 sites that operate there are incredibly difficult to shut down. It is a censorship-free world visited by anonymous users. Little wonder then that it's a natural place to go for anybody with something to hide. And that something, of course, need not be illegal. On the darknet, you will find whistleblower sites, The New Yorker. You will find political activism blogs. You will find libraries of pirated books, but you'll also find the drugs markets, illegal pornography, commercial hacking services, and much more besides. Now, the darknet is one of the most interesting, exciting places anywhere on the net. And the reason is because although innovation, of course, takes place in big businesses, takes place in world-class universities, it also takes place in the fringes. Because those on the fringes, the pariahs, the outcasts, they're often the most creative because they have to be. And this part of the internet, you will not find a single lolcat, a single pop-up advert anywhere. And that's one of the reasons why I think many of you here will be on the darknet fairly soon. Not that I'm suggesting anyone in this audience would use it to go and procure high-quality narcotics. But let's say for a moment that you were. Bear with me. The first thing you will notice on signing up to one of these sites is how familiar it looks. Every single product, thousands of products, has a glossy, high-res image, a detailed product description, a price. There's a proceed to checkout icon. There is even, most beautifully of all, report this item button. Incredible. You browse through the site, you make your choice, you pay with the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, you enter an address, preferably not your home address, and you wait for your product to arrive in the post, which it nearly always does. And the reason it does is not because of the clever encryption, that's important, something far simpler than that. It's the user reviews. You see, every single vendor on these sites uses a pseudonym, naturally enough, but they keep the same pseudonym to build up a reputation. And because it's easy for the buyer to change allegiance whenever they want, the only way of trusting a vendor is if they have a good history of positive feedback from other users of the site. And this introduction of competition and choice does exactly what the economists would predict. Prices tend to go down, product quality tends to go up, and the vendors are attentive, they're polite, they're consumer-centric, offering you all manner of special deals, one-offs, buy one, get one free, free delivery, to keep you happy. I spoke to Drugs Heaven. Drugs Heaven was offering excellent and consistent marijuana at a reasonable price. He had a very generous refund policy, detailed T's and C's, and good shipping times. Dear Drugs Heaven, I wrote via the internal emailing system that's also encrypted, of course. I'm new here. Do you mind if I buy just 1 gram of marijuana? A couple of hours later, I get a reply. They always reply. Hi there, thanks for your email. Starting small is a wise thing to do. I would too if I were you. So no problem if you'd like to start with just 1 gram. I do hope we can do business together. Best wishes, Drugs Heaven. Don't know why he had a posh English accent, but I assume he did. Now, this kind of sort of consumer-centric attitude is the reason why, when I reviewed 120,000 pieces of feedback that had been left on one of these sites over a 3-month period, 95% of them were 5 out of 5. The customer, you see, is king. But what does that mean? Well, on the one hand, that means there are more drugs, more available, more easily, to more people. And by my reckoning, that is not a good thing. But on the other hand, if you are going to take drugs, you have a reasonably good way of guaranteeing a certain level of purity and quality, which is incredibly important if you're taking drugs. And you can do so from the comfort of your own home without the risks associated with buying on the streets. Now, as I said, you've got to be creative and innovative to survive in this marketplace. And the 20 or so sites that are currently in operation, by the way, they don't always work, they're not always perfect. The site that I showed you was shut down 18 months ago, but not before it had turned over $1 billion worth of trade. But these markets, because of the difficult conditions in which they are operating, the inhospitable conditions, are always innovating, always thinking of ways of getting smarter, more decentralized, harder to censor, and more customer friendly. Let's take the payment system. You don't pay with your credit card, of course. That would lead directly back to you. So you use the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, which is easily exchanged for real-world currencies and gives quite a high degree of anonymity to its users. But at the beginning of these sites, people noticed a flaw. Some of the unscrupulous dealers were running away with people's Bitcoin before they'd mailed the drugs out. Community came up with a solution called multi-signature escrow payments. So, on purchasing my item, I would send my Bitcoin to a neutral, secure, third digital wallet. The vendor, who would see that I'd sent it, would be confident that they could then send the product to me. And then when I received it, at least 2 of the 3 people engaged in the transaction, vendor, buyer, site administrator, would have to sign the transaction off with a unique digital signature, and then the money would be transferred. Brilliant. Elegant. It works. But then they realized there was a problem with Bitcoin. Because every Bitcoin transaction is actually recorded publicly in a public ledger. So if you're clever, you can try and work out who's behind them. So they came up with a tumbling service. Hundreds of people send their Bitcoin into one address. They're tumbled and jumbled up, and then they're sent on, the right amount is sent on to the right recipients, but they're different Bitcoins. Micro-laundering systems. It's incredible. Interested in what drugs are trending right now on the darknet markets? Check Grams, the search engine. You can even buy some advertising space. Are you an ethical consumer worried about what the drugs industry is doing? Yeah. One vendor will offer you fair trade organic cocaine. That's not being sourced from Colombian drug lords, but Guatemalan farmers. They even promised to reinvest 20% of any profits into local education programs. There's even a mystery shopper. Now, whatever you think about the morality of these sites, and I submit that it's not actually an easy question, the creation of functioning, competitive, anonymous markets where nobody knows who anybody else is, constantly at risk of being shut down by the authorities, is a staggering achievement, a phenomenal achievement. And it's that kind of innovation that's why those on the fringes are often the harbingers of what is to come. And it's easy to forget that because of its short life, the internet has actually changed many times over the last 30 years or so. It started in the 70s as a military project, morphed in the 1980s to an academic network, co-opted by commercial companies in the 90s, and then invaded by all of us via social media in the noughties. But I think it's going to change again. And I think things like the darknet markets, creative, secure, difficult to censor, I think that's the future. And the reason it's the future is because we're all worried about our privacy. Surveys consistently show concerns about privacy. The more time we spend online, the more we worry about them, and those surveys show our worries are growing. We're worried about what happens to our data. We're worried about who might be watching us. Since the revelations from Edward Snowden, there's been a huge increase in the number of people using various privacy-enhancing tools. There are now between 2 and 3 million daily users of the Tor browser, the majority of use is perfectly legitimate, sometimes even mundane. And there are hundreds of activists around the world working on techniques and tools to keep you private online. Default encrypted messaging services. Ethereum, which is a project which tries to link up the connected but unused hard drives of millions of computers around the world to create a sort of distributed internet that no one really controls. Now, we've had distributed computing before, of course. We use it for everything from Skype to the search for extraterrestrial life. But you add distributed computing and powerful encryption, that's very, very hard to censor and control. Another called MadeSafe works to similar principles. Another called Twister, and so on and so on. And here's the thing. As more of us join, the more interesting those sites become. And then the more of us join, and so on. And I think that's what's going to happen. In fact, it's already happening. The darknet is no longer a den for dealers and a hideout for whistleblowers. It's already going mainstream. Just recently, the musician Aphex Twin released his album as a darknet site. Facebook has started a darknet site. A group of London architects have opened a darknet site for people worried about regeneration projects. Yes, the darknet is going mainstream, and I predict that fairly soon, every social media company, every major news outlet, and therefore most of you in this audience will be using the darknet too. So the internet's about to get more interesting, more exciting, more innovative, more terrible, more destructive. That's good news if you care about liberty. It's good news if you care about freedom. It's good news if you care about democracy. It's also good news if you want to browse for illegal pornography and if you want to buy and sell drugs with impunity. It's neither entirely dark nor entirely light. It's not one side or the other that's going to win out, but both. Thank you very much indeed.
So, yeah, that was a great talk, actually, a great short synopsis. I hadn't actually seen that. I've watched just about every TED Talk I can find, but I hadn't seen that one, so I knew I wanted to watch it, and I thought maybe you'd want to watch along with me, and that's what we did. But he gave a really good synopsis. Really, the point is this. Several things I want to say about it. I am the man of endless opinions, right? So he kind of made the point that I was saying, that it is becoming mainstream. So if you're a technologist, if you're a technology professional, you need to get familiar with this, because this is the next evolution of the internet. We all feel like we have, anyway, we all feel like we have a basic right to privacy, encryption, anonymity. And of course, that's a life or death thing in some countries, in the Middle East or China. So, but likewise, even here. Now, I've never looked at child porn. I have no interest in child porn. I've never done illegal drugs. I have no interest in illegal drugs. Although, personally, as far as drugs, I've never understood the drug war, personally, even though I have no interest in drugs. But I don't understand why it's not legal to snort gasoline if you want. I mean, I've never understood the drug war, but that's a whole other discussion. So if, what people put in their own body, I care about laws about what people do to each other. And obviously child pornography, that's a horrific, it's very disgusting that people are using that. But like I said, that's how the original internet started off 20 years ago. It had that stain, and now it's moved to this next layer, and this is where the innovation is happening. So you really ought to get familiar with it as a technology person, because of the encryption. Of course, if you don't have a Bitcoin account, you should have one. Bitcoin has been the digital currency for years now, for several years now. And yeah, so the best way to do it is to go look for the Tor browser. And there are actually, if you remember the original Yahoo, how it was an index, there are indexes there for sites on the dark web, and for whatever your proclivity. Now, there's a lot of legitimate stuff on there, and that's the only, I'm interested in the technology of it, and you should be too if you're in this field, or if you're technology curious, or, if you are a mainstream internet user, you need to be familiar with where it's going. So, as he said, Facebook already has a place on there. There was a few other things I wanted to say about it, but I can't think of them right now. But I'm sure you've heard plenty from me. So let's get on to our next story. If I think of them later, I'll mention them. Oh yeah, I brought up something. Oh well, you know what? I can't think of it right now. There's about 10 other things I wanted to say. But this is all off the top of my head. It's not like I write out scripts for this. So, okay, let's go on to the next story. So our picture of the day comes from Lenny. He doesn't give a last name. In Phoenix, Arizona. Tech support, you're doing it right. He doesn't look like he's well, maybe he is part of a major call center there. He's got like an end booth. Anyway, if you've done tech support, you know that look right there. I did tech support in the over the phone support in the early to mid 90s. In fact, I worked for a company called AST, which was kind of the Dell computer of their time. You may remember them doing phone support. And luckily, that was the last phone support job I had. And people would wait an hour and a half because they would buy computer data out of the box. and wait an hour and a half to get support. There's a reason this company went out of business. Actually, I believe Samsung acquired them. Boy, it's so long ago I can't recall. Anyway, it was not long after I had left, but people were not happy with the company. They didn't move their call center to India, luckily. In fact, this was in Fort Worth, Texas. So, but I had that look many times. So thanks for the picture. Remember to send your picture to editor@computermagazine.com. Get on the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/computer magazine. You can find all the links in the notes of the video. You can tweet it to me. You can get on our chat, computermagazine.com/chat. There's many ways. So anyway, get your meme. Send me your question. If you have a technology question, I am willing to answer your technology question. And in fact, we are running really late today. I'm trying to keep the digital mashup between 30 and 45 minutes, and we are running well over 50-something minutes, I believe, at this point. So I am going to save the question of the day until tomorrow because it's something I want to talk about more extensively, about the Raspberry Pi and Arduino. And that's something I really want to talk about to you guys. So I'm going to save that question for tomorrow. Likewise, going over the RSA conference. I talked about that earlier on back in February, but I want to talk more about some issues with the RSA conference. And in fact, there's a video of a discussion I want to show. So, so I think actually I'm going to have to save those things for tomorrow. But remember, go to computermagazine.com and join me back here tomorrow. We're going to go over all this other stuff. So, a couple of the stories I mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned them at the beginning. I know I did about the RSA conference. I'll save till tomorrow, and I'll go over it then, if you're interested, and hopefully you are. Well, that is all for today. Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. But I really appreciate you coming here to join me. And hopefully you're finding it interesting. And if not, hopefully you're finding it entertaining in some way, if not humorous. And either way, share the videos, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/computermagazine. Like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/computermagazine.com. And, we're going to keep working here because we work hard 24/7 to bring you all of the technology news from across the web. We are the index of the technology news on the web. And you know what? This year we are celebrating 20 years of computermagazine.com. So we're pretty proud of it. And, we're going to keep bringing you the video versions as well. So make sure to get on our YouTube channel. That way you can download them. You can or watch them. Either way, you don't have to actually read. I'm trying to make it easy on you for at least the highlights and some specialized topics. We've also got the Building Your Own Computer series. I'm going to be bringing that to you soon, I promise. All the footage, so it was trying to be very thorough about it. I mentioned this maybe 3-4 months ago. Anyway, it's all shot. It's just editing. And you can imagine just doing this show every day takes several hours. So, let alone everything else I have to do. But, we've got good people at Computer Magazine. And, send in your questions. I would love to have a dialogue with you, so make sure you comment on the videos. And either way, for technology professionals and for you technology curious people, this is the place to be. So thanks for coming, and join me here again tomorrow, Friday, March 3rd, 2017, and we will do the digital mashup all over again. I'm Chris Swearingin, and visit computermagazine.com. Thanks.